rather than give a presentation to you, which we could all do with pictures of the kids and everything, we want to jump straight into just Q&A in terms of what's on your mind. And if it's all right, if you had the time, we'll go for a full hour rather than 45 minutes, because we found in the last session we were just getting warmed up about the time we had to stop. This is a chance for us to listen. If you feel that we don't answer a question crisply, or you have a different approach and you want to push back, very, very much open to it. We'll probably get more out of this than we give back, but it's an honor to be with you today, and an honor to see so many familiar faces. So, Pankaj, you and Edzard can't ask any questions, and we might give it to them on it. So, who would like to get us started? Please. Now, David, I'm going to control it.
Hi, speaking with Peter. I just wanted your perspective on emerging markets. You did talk about it in the morning, and also your, what are your thoughts on the Indian market? How is it panning out for Cisco, and what are the plans ahead, and especially in terms of investment?
So this is one of those that's actually an easy answer as long as you don't lose track of the end game. Emerging markets are 52% of the world's GDP. It's where the majority of IT will be consumed over the next 2 to 3 decades. The growth rate year in and year out on average will be 2 to 3 times the growth rate GDP of developed countries. And so we are 100% all in on emerging markets. Secondly, if you look at your ability to do that, you invest when on the downturns. You saw us do that in the Asian financial crisis in the late 1990s. You saw us do that with the automotive industry in the US, financial companies in 2008 and 2009. So we actually will increase our investment and focus. Now, Chuck, I'm going to ask you to take the last step and share a little bit in terms of how often we do the reviews of the emerging countries. What do you see as an opportunity? And then I'll answer the India question.
Yeah, I think the thing John pointed out is one, you can't make decisions based on short-term changes. And we are investing during some of the challenging times that we see today. It's amazing how fast these things occur. When the middle of last year, when the United States began to hint at slowing the bond buying program and rates ticked up a bit, the capital outflow from emerging markets was pretty astounding and pretty rapid, which created currency issues as well as it created capital challenges. So we have gotten very aggressive, not to go into details, but leveraging Cisco capital in a responsible way, as well as working with third parties to actually try to help solve that issue. So one of the investment areas we're dealing with right now, and I won't go into all of them, is because one of the big challenges has become access to capital. We've actually worked with some external third parties as well as gotten Cisco capital even more engaged to invest now in helping our customers through some of these times. Now, what we do internally is we've got an emerging rigorous engagement strategy from the executives. We have an executive assigned to every emerging country, and we expect them to be there every quarter. John and I actually do reviews on every emerging country with the team that owns the country as well as the executive sponsor for that country. We do that once a quarter. So we're very focused on it. It's very important to us, and we see it as a big driver for our long-term growth.
India specifically, we have, as you know, over 10,000 people in India. We're bringing venture capital into India. We're excited about the elections, so hopefully we get some predictability on the opportunities. And India is one that we are always the canary in the coal mine. We always see the downturns 2 to 3 quarters ahead of our peers. And everybody says, well, it's unique to Cisco, and 2 to 3 quarters later, emerging markets are dropping. The financial crisis of 2007, when the finance industry, we said there's something wrong, and everybody said unique to Cisco, it dropped. In fall of 2012, we said the U.S. business really started to turn up. If you'd bought into the Dow Jones at that time, you'd have done well. So we will ride through the bumps as they occur. India is a super partner country, and a country we're very much committed to in terms of a partnership, and candidly committed to the partners in India, like Wipro, like Tata, that go with us on a global basis. Next question. I'll run with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm in this collaboration big time, but I do like command and control occasionally.
Okay. You say that only 30% of enterprise now will survive in the new skills in your conference. Only 30% of enterprise going to survive, you say. How many of your channels do you think, your traditional channels, going to survive this transformation?
Okay. So the question is, if you believe that 90% of the companies in the world, it's 87% according to surveys we've done with MIT and others, are going to have a major economic downturn in the next decade or two, and only 11% will ever come back to where they were, I think the same thing is true of all players within IT. Now, I personally would say Cisco partners have a much higher probability of being successful there because we've done this, what, 4 or 5 times? And we've emerged from every one of the downturns much stronger. Look at all our IT peers on a global basis. Once they stumble, it took IBM several decades to come back. They're stumbling again. HP has been in this for what, 3 years, the challenges? So partners who align with Cisco are aligning with a company that does reinvent itself, has the courage to take risks, far from perfect, but I would give them the same type of odds I give us, because we are committed from the partner program. But will there be breakage in all the industry partner programs? Of course, as you go forward.
Okay, and another question. So
I'm going to ask just one at a time until we work our way around and just kind of share them a little bit. Next question? Either one. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi guys, Alex Stroxton, Microscope in the UK.
Yes.
There's been a bit of talk today around the concept of delighting customers, and that was part of the Gold Partner changes that Edison and Bruce were talking to earlier. I'm keen to get your thoughts on how a partner can go about delighting a customer. Is there a baseline of delight that you feel Cisco can measure? What does a delighted customer look like? What does a partner have to do to get there?
It's interesting. All you have to do is ask your customer, are you delighted with the vendor or partner? They'll tell you. So the surveys on our partner program going back just 5 years ago were not good. On a scale of 1 to 5, it was about a 3.8 in terms of the customer's view of how good the partner was in delighting them. Today, it's, as we said on stage, it's 4.55, and Cisco is 4.54 with our direct sales force. But I would argue that isn't where we want to go. We want to go to the point where we not only are the most successful out of all of our peers, but we are able to help the customers achieve their top business goals. We've become much more outcome and result focused, and the customer would say, Cisco, along with your partners, you are the #1 IT player because of your relevance to us, not necessarily on volume or anything else. That requires a different mentality. And if you really want to watch something that might tell you how far we'd like to go, watch the Cleveland Clinic when they took delighting their patients, and they were one of the worst in the world in their satisfaction, and they went to one of the best by just educating every partner, every person that's part of their company on how do you treat your patients differently. So this is a journey, and this is why the fun bet was going to where we were going to go in terms of delighting our partners ourselves. 4.25 doesn't get us there, but it is a step along the way. It's thinking customer in first, and are you really addressing what the customer's issues are?
Yes. All the major IT companies, the big IT companies, they've invested a lot of money to jump on the cloud. On the cloud wagon. Someone says that the Cisco is starting a little too late, what's your opinion about? And then,
I asked him to ask this question.
I mean, all these companies,
yeah.
Even if they have invested a lot of money,
they're not making any money.
Yeah, they're not making any money. I mean, the cloud revenue is a very small percentage of the whole revenue, of the total revenue that they are making. What do you think is, let's say, a sustainable percentage of revenue that has to be generated by the cloud market to be fair for you
So I'm going to ask Rob to handle it. Let me do a little bit of build-up. 15 months ago, we saw the cloud starting to really take off. And as I said in my comments, Padma, when she came to Cisco, our Chief Technology Officer and Strategist, she basically focused on the first phase of the cloud, which we did pretty good on, and in terms of infrastructure within the cloud. 15 months ago, I realized with the leadership team, this is where the action was going to be, and I asked Rob to lead it for the whole company. So not just the typical engineering and sales, but what do we need to do across our whole company to really be able to address this? So I'm going to ask him to address the first and the second one. In terms of revenues, we'll figure that out over time. But in terms of why we can do it profitably and how we're going to do it different than others, and why we think this is the right inflection point, as opposed to some players got there too early in a way they were not successful, would be kind of how I'd phrase it. And Rob, your thoughts?
So where Cisco stands today, by the way, we discussed this with our shareholders and the financial community in November, that today we have an extremely profitable business that's approximately $4.2 billion selling cloud infrastructure to enterprises, selling cloud capabilities to our partners, and a $1.1 billion very profitable SaaS business, comprised of WebEx, comprised of Meraki, and comprised of some of our security offers. So we're already in the cloud, and we do that very profitably. Our strategy is to accelerate the addressable market that we're targeting. From an addressable market today, that $4.2 billion is out of an addressable opportunity for Cisco of approximately $22 billion. As we announced our strategy here, we're expanding our ability with our partners to address enterprise cloud services, and therefore by 2017 expanding our addressable opportunity to $88 billion, which is a 4 times expansion of the market that we're targeting. The number one thing on Cisco's mind and on our partners' mind is large growth opportunities. So sustainably, we think that the cloud services and cloud infrastructure business will grow approximately 19% year over year for the next 5 years. 19%, 19%. And as it grows at that level, we expect that we'll be able to not only increase market share, but also increase so profitably. The reason is we're not focusing on commodity cloud. We're focusing on a new way to deliver Cisco software and applications, and that's fundamentally behind our strategy. So you've already seen us with WebEx, you've already seen us with Meraki, you've seen us with 60 partners delivering our hosted communications solution called HCS. You'll see us expand that portfolio, make more of our software available, not only on the premise, but from the cloud, and give our customers choice. So we think we're going to do so very profitably. We think the cloud infrastructure itself is just like the factory of the future. It's a new way to deliver and manufacture our products. It's a new kind of supply chain. But our products will be software, they'll be the same kind of capabilities and innovation we brought in the past, and that's why we think the profit model is going to work very well inside of Cisco's current business model.
I would also add to that the track record. How often have we missed a market? Almost never. And we're not perfect, but once we see one take off, we're pretty good at adjusting, and whether you need to acquire to get there or recover very quickly, we're pretty good at doing that. My gut feel is we're right at the right point where people no longer look at this as a white box market. They're saying, how do I do this as effectively as part of a secure architecture and a different way of delivering the models, and let the customer have choice. Please, sir.
I remember the Bruce quote from Peter Drucker: the best way to predict the future is to create it. If I ask to you, you have some internal procedure that your top managers could mention to me the 5, 6, 7 ideas disruptive from your channel partners, or not?
So I do believe part of the way to predict the future is to create it. But you've got to watch those market transitions that are occurring, i.e. mobility, i.e. cloud, i.e. security, i.e. video, emerging markets, collaboration. And then you've got to listen to your customers in terms of what's important to them. And then you create the future. We do it with architectures, and we do it in a way different than all of our peers with what is sustainable differentiation. Then we don't mind taking risks. Whether that's in acquisitions or it's whether starting 7 years ago with Smart Plus Connected Communities, and we clearly were ahead of our peers. And the first 3 or 4 years, the market wasn't ready. Now it's really beginning to take off. But from the very first day when we described Cisco as the company that changes the way you work, live, learn, and play, and people said you're only a router company, now if you talk to government leaders around the world, almost without exception, those who know us, whether it's Cameron in the UK, Barbara in Canada, the leadership in Russia, the leadership in Israel, whether it's Netanyahu or Shimon Peres, doesn't matter, Park in South Korea, we have the image of being able to create a future by seeing around the corners and then being able to see what it means in terms of the approach. And so yes, I do believe if you can get your market transitions right, listen to your customers, whether they're enterprise or government, build it off of architectures and have the courage to take the risk, because everything's moving to the network, and I mean everything, then you can help create a future in a different way. I'd argue that's what we did with the Internet of Things. A year ago, I would have had to buy most people in this room a drink for you to talk with them more than 5 minutes on. Today, it is the hottest issue going at the CEO level, the government level, and it is about things. It's things with process, with data, and changing it. Please.
John, this morning in your keynote, you mentioned white labels and how it's going to be more of a challenge to sell against them than a Dell or an HP. Can you explain your thought on that?
Sure. This is one we saw coming 3 to 4 years ago. We saw that if you're not have a differentiatable product, which I'd argue HP and IBM and Dell and the other players in the server market did not, then your competition is going to be a very cheap alternative, often coming out of Asia with just an x86 inside of it or a switch like that. So when you see that coming, you've got to say, what do the customers want? If the customer realizes they can get dramatic top-line growth and bottom-line growth by partnering with somebody, it's not even a discussion about whose technology they'll use. If you're able to combine the software, the hardware, the ASICs, both within a product like UCS, combine it with the network, combine it with storage, and then focus how you can move this anywhere in the network, from the cloud all the way down to the edge in ways that others cannot, your total cost of ownership, your ability to produce results much, much quicker. And if you're then able to teach your sales force and your partner sales force, even when you do a direct comparison versus a white box with open source on top of it, we can name 3 or 4 players, and we're less expensive, we should not lose that battle. Now what we've got to realize is they're in places where we don't see, and we need to take it to them in those type of markets. But this is one that we saw 3 years ago. Architectures play great into it, business solutions play great into it, etc. And so there'll be certain segments of the market that are purely focused on price. There will be other segments that are focused on outcome and total cost of ownership. We think we can win that battle, although it is going to be a battle, we don't underestimate it in terms of how it occurs. Would you buy that?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. I would too.
Hi, Roundtable from Spain. This morning you presented Barcelona like an example of a smart city.
Yes.
In which part of the evolution from the actual smart city to the city that could be with Internet of Everything we are now?
So where we are on the evolution, I think Barcelona and Songdo over in Korea were the 2 lighthouse accounts. You've got to have lighthouse accounts for others to see what's possible. Then you go from 2 to 20, which is what we're in the process of doing. Then you go from 20 to 500, and then thousands. And what was exciting about Barcelona, and I'd love to claim credit for it from the Cisco side, is you just had a mayor and a vice mayor, and regardless of politics, they understood what technology, they want to become the technology innovation city, who just happens to give services that way. And once you get it, they realized that what Cisco could do that was so different than every other company in the industry who came at them just saying, buy my routers, buy my servers, buy this mobile capability. We focus purely on outcomes. In fact, I don't think in all my visits with their team, I mentioned a router or server the entire time. And then we implement it. And then you get the results. So this is a huge market. Unit runs 25 million per city once it gets going, recurring. And I think Barcelona is the example for the rest of the world to focus on. But remember how much they get back. $3 billion a year. 47,000 knowledge workers. They are one of the few cities in Europe, especially in the south, that has a surplus and putting 500 million back into infrastructure. It's the model for the future, and it's the model for what Cisco wants to be seen as.
Hello, I'm Christopher Jakubik from Sierra in Poland. In the Internet of Everything market, you can see a lot of activity among startups. And do you see those as potential partners of Cisco or rather competitors? Thank you.
Chuck?
I think by and large we see them as potential partners. This is a massive opportunity. John talked about the value and profits and expense reductions and savings. And in fact, if you look at our strategy around the world, we've begun to open innovation centers. And the purpose of those innovation centers largely the ones we've opened recently have been around the Internet of Things and creating that technology showcase and a platform, off of which these smaller startups can then become part of a broader ecosystem, doing application development against certain industries, etc. So while I'm sure we'll compete with some of them over time, I think that most of them have the potential to be really good partners, because it's going to take a massive ecosystem to actually unleash the value that is in the potential of the Internet of Everything.
Think about it in terms of our culture. Think about the Internet was about allowing everybody to participate, and not how do we take a big piece of the pie at the expense of others. We tend to think about participation the same way with partners. And if we're able to provide a differentiated partner strategy, they'll go with us. Please, sir.
Hi, I'm Sam Trendle from CR in UK. My question is, when you talk about being the world's #1 IT company, how do you quantify that? Is that #1 in terms of revenue, #1 in terms of being the top right in the Magic Quadrant, #1 in terms of brand recognition? How would you kind of like to be judged against that goal of being #1?
You know, the reason I'm smiling is because when I asked the company to focus on becoming the #1 IT player, they say, how do you measure it? And I say, you measure it purely by how your customers answer the question. If the majority of your customers answer the question that you're my #1 IT partner, you've been very successful. You don't measure it on revenues, but by definition, if you do the first, your margins ought to be very good as well. We had one customer come in at our leadership offsite last week, and when we were talking about the direction, the customer said, we measure who's going to be our #1 IT provider, who makes the difference for us. And so that's the way you measure it. When you ask when you ask our customers in your territories around the world, and who is your #1 IT partner, they won't tell you who does it by volume. They'll tell you who provides the most value. That's the way you measure it. And you can measure it by surveys and everything else, but that's how you get there.
Hello, I'm Gustavo Martinez for Kiwayan Magazine Latin America. Barcelona is a very nice city, really. But are you thinking to work in a small city, also Latin American?
So I'm going to ask Rob to handle it, because as you're probably aware, we will be the infrastructure player and the networking IT player for the Olympics coming up in Brazil. And Brazil is also the country that Rob is the executive sponsor on that Chuck referred to earlier. So Rob, a little bit your thoughts about that?
I think, John, we're going to see everything we talked about here unfold based on these two very global events that will occur inside of Brazil. Not only the impact of the World Cup and of the upcoming Olympics, but the vast opportunities in the natural resources industry, in transportation, logistics, and mining, and resources, and energy. So we did open the Innovation Center in the fall in Rio de Janeiro. We did establish a $40 million venture capital fund to work with local VCs. $40 million fund.
He speaks with a Canadian accent.
Right, sorry, I apologize.
I speak with a Southern accent. Between the two of us, we'll get it right.
And exactly how Chuck described, bringing together a local set of partners that we think will leverage the two global mega events that will occur there, the upgraded infrastructure that's underway right now, and as an official sponsor and an official partner of the Rio Games 2016, you will see an opportunity for us to demonstrate those capabilities in the infrastructure that's being built in Rio. As we looked at London, and I apologize, but as we look back at London, in East London, where we did the same thing in the 2012 Olympics, what we've seen, and this is actually the power of a big event like that, we saw that we did build the infrastructure to run the London Olympic Games. And behind there has been an incubator for small startups. And that infrastructure and capability that's been left behind has created, John, how many startups have been built in the East London area, which is the poorest part of a very wealthy city? Dozens and dozens of startups have been incubated as a result of that legacy that's left behind. That's the objective we'll see, and the Innovation Center in Brazil is targeted to do exactly that.
Can I just have one comment? Because you live in Barcelona, I think it's important. John mentioned earlier, Barcelona has hosted 180 other cities from around the world in the last 12 months. 180 cities. And many of those cities have asked them to engage in helping them think through what they need to do, and many of those engagements now, where actually the city of Barcelona, and we're teaming with them, are actually occurring in Latin America. So we're also taking the learnings from Barcelona into Latin America.
But this is what we do different, if I could use this as a summary point before we go on to the next questions. We are able to combine what are the expectations and the goals of the country, and use the UK as an example where Prime Minister Cameron, when we talked to him about 2 years before the Olympics, he said, John, I want to use this to make UK a great place for business. I want to create an innovation engine here that we can make a difference on. I want to take one of our areas that doesn't have some of the economic opportunities that they should, East London, and I want to do it in a way that gets traction after that. And I want to do innovation centers that our country can continue to use the Olympics to build off of. Fast forward almost 4 years later now, and he did all of those. And he just visited that incubation center in East London the other day. Cisco can do things that other companies cannot, and we do it because we say the internet is going to be the way that IT will be delivered. It's the way you can change people's lives. It's the way that you literally can do things in a way we just begin to understand on healthcare and education. We're in the right spot at the right time, and we're trying to be pretty aggressive on how we bring it together. But it is a flywheel. The more pieces you put together, the faster the flywheel turns, and candidly, the easier it is for you to pull away from your competitors.
Kristen Bent, CRN.
Kristen?
To go back to the concept really quickly of becoming the #1 IT company, I was wondering if maybe you could give maybe an update on your progress in that quest, and then also, what's an example of maybe 1 or 2 hurdles you see in fulfilling that quest?
So I'm going to answer the first part, and I'm going to give the second part to Rob, which was one of the hurdles until the announcements we just made, was what are you going to do in the cloud, especially public cloud, and how we're going to differentiate ourselves in that market. So Rob, I'll ask you to take that second piece. Where we are, and Chuck is driving this across the whole world, is in the enterprise market, we're doing a pretty good job of moving toward the #1 IT position. You're seeing us gain huge share in terms of our server technology, different image in terms of the data center. With the Internet of Everything, we're suddenly having a lot of enterprise customers view us not as an IT player, but more as a business partner. And so on a scale of 1 to 10 journey-wise, we're probably at about a 6. Now, what we've got to do, and what Chuck has talked about also, is we do that very well in the U.S. and very well in the commercial market, small and medium business in the U.S. We have to take those same concepts around the world. And I just met with a partner from Germany, with our German manager, and what they want to do is bring that to small and medium business to life in Germany, and then with Alison Gleason that you've got running commercial now worldwide in terms of the direction. So we have to take what we've done with the direct touch with great partners here in the U.S. and expand it globally, and then we've got to really make a relative difference on it. A key element, as I alluded to earlier, in terms of the disruptions that occur in the IT industry, was where does the cloud go and what role Cisco will be in. And maybe, Rob, if you could summarize 4 or 5 key takeaways and how important this was a move for us in terms of position to be the #1 IT.
So, John, I think when...
Oh, you can answer the question. Any question?
I'm going to answer that question.
Okay.
But I think there was 2 impediments to us. Cloud was one of them, or having a clearly articulated strategy that would scale, and we've spent some time here on that. And then the second one, Kristen, is our view that the next generation of IT, and to be the leader, we needed to simplify a lot about how our customers would deploy applications. We needed to cut through all the complexity that our customers are facing, and we needed to leverage our unique position of the broad base of infrastructure that we bring from data center through wide area right out to the access of the network, and we need to make it easier for them to deploy applications, existing and future. So there's 2 things we've done, John. The first is we announced in Barcelona a significant effort for us to simplify all the capabilities we've brought to that thing we call the platform, the Cisco One platform. And we announced our intention to do that, create a simplified licensing mechanism for our customers and partners. We'll announce the pricing and the actual consumption models of that mechanism at Cisco Live coming up in May in San Francisco, making it easier for our customers to deploy applications and automate the underlying infrastructure. That's one impediment to become the #1 IT company, make it easier for our customers to deploy apps. The second was the cloud. And so the announcements that we made here were really founded on a couple of real differentiators. And the reason we made that, this is the most important part of the announcement, we made it here. We didn't go off to another conference, and we didn't go off to an off-site venue. We made that announcement here because we're so convinced that our approach of open technology, open ecosystem, leveraging the construct of open, including the trust we built with our partners, is only Cisco could actually pull off the strategy of the platform for the Internet of Everything. So we did it here because it's about partners. We also think that it's going to leverage the technologies that you've all heard us talk about, ACI, application-centric infrastructure. Cisco Cloud Services, in conjunction with our partners, is going to be the demonstrated use case of how ACI is going to be used to speed up the deployment of underlying infrastructure. So rather than us working with a customer, doing a trial, doing a test, we're going into the DevOps model. We're going to take ACI, we're going to build it in our own infrastructure, we're going to build it with our partners, and show customers exactly how Cisco's SDN strategy beats every other SDN strategy in the marketplace. We don't want to talk about this anymore and have theoretical arguments about marketing architectures. We want to prove that this one works in scale, and we're going to, with our partners, go out and build it. So instead of a marketing conversation, we'll have a real conversation about technology at scale that we are absolutely convinced we're going to win. And what was the third advantage, John? I can't remember. It's about opportunity to grow. Our partners have been so close to us, and we're so close to them because we've created markets together that we can grow. $88 billion from 4.2 is a lot of opportunity. So together, I think our partners believe we've created a new opportunity of growth. We think this is a great opportunity for us, and we think it creates even a multiplier on top of that for our partners. And we've seen that with every single partner type of conversation. Providers that are already building cloud, they see new expanded opportunities to enhance their portfolio. People that are actually building clouds for their customers, they see a whole series of professional services. And those resellers that have asked us, as you know they have, what's our role in the cloud and can you give us some expanded portfolio? They're all very happy with this announcement. So those are the three things: growth, innovation, and simplification in terms of the overall portfolio. And I think as you see the announcements coming up, this is going to play out over the next several weeks, months, and quarters, and we're pretty excited by the reaction we've seen from our partners here at the Partner Summit.
Agreed. Key takeaway, when you do something as revolutionary as we just did, if you get 60% of your own internal company to believe in it, and 60% of your partners, it was a home run. This one may go well into the 90s, and that speaks to timing. We visited with our partners last year. They said we're not quite ready yet. They realize it's moving so fast they can't do it on their own. They say we need help and we ought to do it together. So I think, again, our catching that inflection point, it feels pretty good. I do not underestimate the heavy lifting we got to do to get there.
Hi, Robert Dutch, ChannelBuzz.ca. I think we actually just covered a lot of the territory I wanted to cover, but nevertheless, I think it bears asking. Until recently, the strategy from Cisco seemed to be, and it was communicated as, we will support Cisco-powered cloud providers, we'll support Cisco-powered cloud apps, we'll stay out of building clouds ourselves, we'll provide the infrastructure for doing that. What were the big changes or the big decision points that led you to saying, all right, we have to get more involved here?
One of the first ones is we gave one person responsibility for owning this across Cisco, and that's Rob. Then the ability to listen and catch those inflection points would be the second. Rob, then from there.
I think you mentioned, John, we were together with our partners. Was it in June that we had the last Partner Summit?
I think it was almost this time.
This time?
Maybe not. It was June.
I think it was June. So 10 months ago, we asked our most trusted partners what their view was in terms of what Cisco's role should be. And they were split. And we actually listened to that comment. And I had a position, and we came back to something that was a little bit different than I expected. Remember?
Very much.
And so we actually listened. And in the 10 months from that point in time, the market's moved more quickly. There's been issues of scale and capabilities that our partners and perhaps Cisco haven't kept up with from what we heard 10 months ago. So we've actually decided that because the market's moving quickly, we see the scale that the cloud represents in terms of economies of scale. We can bring that scale to this conversation. whereas our partners independently can't. We've seen the economics of cloud delivery models has evolved. But most importantly, and this is something that everybody here at Cisco realizes, is for the customers we serve, the conversation has changed to hybrid cloud. We've done phenomenally well in private cloud. We've done very well. We've done very well enabling our partners, but the model today is hybrid cloud, and that's on the minds of government customers, enterprise customers, and small business customers. So we're stepping in, and unequivocally, we're going to lead how those hybrid clouds can be delivered, building an ecosystem of multiple clouds. That's the difference, and I think it's resonating with our partners, and we've decided we have to move more quickly, and in doing so, we announced our intercloud strategy.
All right, maybe a lightning round if we could. We'll go around the room for any question you didn't have a chance to get an answer to. I want to address, did you all get the key takeaways on SDN that we said earlier today? If I were to hit it very directly, and let me just cover it, because I know two of you asked me, we went through the audience. We will embrace software-defined networks, and we will have the best implementation of it. We will not do it the way our peers are, with a separate software network and a separate physical network. Because if you do that, troubleshooting, cost of ownership go up dramatically, reliability drops down within it, and you won't be able to bring the services that you need as quick to market. And even when it was asked one of the key players in this area, VMware, who their competitor was, as I said in my opening comments today, they said only Cisco. And what you'll see is what we typically do. We embrace new concepts. Customers want flexibility and programmability, we'll provide it. And watch how fast we'll move past these players who did this with merchant silicon, with switching, with VMware, who might have been out there for as long as 5 or 6 years. So you will see us embrace that. We'll do the same thing in service providers with NFV, and we'll make software with ASICs, ACI, a solution. And that we need to tell a better story on. You'll see also Rob and I and Chuck begin to carry around our ASICs in our pockets again and remind you about how unique the ASIC story is in performance, number of transistors. And you put software into ASICs much more than you do hardware. If you use somebody else's ASICs, you have to wait till it gets out, then you have to design to it. By definition, you're 2 years behind. So, are you comfortable with where we are in SDN and why we believe we're going to win this battle? Okay, lightning round, all the way around. Please.
Hi, Mr. Chambers. My question, I wanted to get an idea about what kind of business do you get from India in terms of percentage contribution, and how do you see that increasing maybe in the next 5 years? And also if you could comment on India's role in R&D for Cisco, and if we can see more senior executive from India.
So 4 or 5 questions. First, let's go to the 10,000 foot view. We are deeply committed to India, period. Secondly, in terms of its contribution, it's way too low. It's below 2% of our total business. It should be in the 5 to 10% range. We've shared that with our people in India, with the government leaders, etc., because it's got to be a win-win with them. Third, in terms of senior executives there, we're locating more and more with our engineering and some of our rising stars within the sales organizations, as well as having members of the India community providing more and more leadership. So you'll see us just continue to commit to India, but it's got to be a win-win within that. We think that it will be in terms of the opportunity.
So this 5 to 10%, by when do you see that happening?
Well, my own view is, Chuck knows I'm not very patient, so I'm going to let you answer that. Now, remember, I have a lot of weaknesses. I'm not very good in the English language, but I remember numbers forever. So what numbers are you committing to on your forecast, Rob?
The good news is that I have a mathematical sciences degree. Never in my life have I used it more than I have in the last 2 years in this job. I think our expectations is we should be growing our business at 20% a year. So I don't think there's any reason we shouldn't, barring any macro situations, and the team, I think, believes that as well. So depending on the rest of our business, I mean, we think in 5 years it should be well above 5% of our business, and moving even more so. It's just too big an economy with too strong a growth prospect for us not to be doing better there.
Yeah, maybe Pankaj, just very quickly, comments about how much of your engineering you've got there in India in terms of commitment.
We have done about 8,000 plus engineers on Cisco badge out of 28,000, and we have almost about 7,000 contractors. The study goes from Tata, Wipro, HCL, etc. So it's a pretty huge company. And it was not a labor arbitrage decision. It was where we went with the talent was. You graduate 60,000 engineers, 600,000 a year. We graduate 60,000 in the US. We're after talent. Other questions that we didn't get to?
Hi, my name is Felipe from Brazil. When you look at Cisco portfolio, in your opinion, what is missing and what is most important now to your vision come true in the future?
The vision of becoming the #1 IT company?
Yeah.
Very good question. I think it's our ability to keep up with the pace of change and to prioritize across the company on the key issues we have to do with them. That sounds easy, but it's really hard. We're going to have Gary Moore, who's the other president and COO, focus on how do you do the next generation of operational excellence with speed. Because operational excellence means slow to most people. So I think it is the ability to keep up with the pace of change. That implies innovation. It implies being customer-driven. It implies architectures. Otherwise, you can't make it happen. But it also applies a different degree of prioritization and operational excellence at super fast speed across the company. Nobody's done that before at the speed we need to. So I'd say those would be our two challenges. Guys, I don't know how close you resonate with.
I'll say personally, from my organization's perspective, I think the biggest challenge we have is getting everyone in a position to tightly couple what our capabilities are to the business outcomes and the business priorities of our customers. I think that's one thing that we have to do more effectively, and that's the point we were making earlier about taking where we're doing this well. We see growth and trying to expand that, but actually really having people who can align the technology to the business objectives of the customers is a big one for us.
Rob?
I think a challenge for us and our partners is for us to help them simplify the broad portfolio that we bring to the marketplace, whether it's licensing mechanisms, whether it's the business terms that we bring to our clients. So I think you'll see us do a lot more on licensing, packaging, and making it easier for our customers to consume broad capabilities of this company and easier for our partners to sell them.
So I'm going to do the part I enjoy most. It's a lightning round. If I can steal a microphone from somebody. You start, and with just real quick Q&As, and I'm going to give most of them to my colleagues.
So I have one for you. As a long-time CEO of the tech sector, what are your thoughts on Satya Nadella, and also to Steve Ballmer, who I know you work closely with at times, even battled on a few occasions?
Yes. So first, Satya is world-class. If you remember, when we did our application-centric infrastructure launch in November, Satya was on stage saying, this is a game changer, both in terms of the industry, but also the Cisco-Microsoft relationship. In terms of Steve Ballmer, I think he did a very good job. Tough market to be in, and the comments you saw today, if he added to do over, he would combine software and hardware and ASICs. And I think that's an important lesson for us to remember as a team, how important it is to be able to do that and data center mobility in this new marketplace. They're a company I admire very much. I think if you look out 2 years from now, if we do our job well, they may be one of, if not our most important strategic partner. We'll see if we play out. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Does acquisition of Roundtable affected in any way your cooperation with EMC and or NetApp? And do you plan any more storage acquisitions?
Okay, thank you. So I'll handle the easy part, and then we'll give it to one of the two my colleagues here. In fact, I'll let you guys go first.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead. Well, I think if you fundamentally understand why we made the acquisition, it is to get integrated flash with compute. Because Rob talked about earlier, I can't remember if it was in here or whatever, but the Internet of Everything platform is a distributed network platform with compute and flash capabilities distributed at the edge of the network closest to where you need to have the impact of gathering the information that you're gathering by definition. We had to have that capability. So I think that in general, we still have great relationships with NetApp, great relationships with EMC. VCE is growing at record rates. And so in today's world, we have lots of partnerships where we have great areas of cooperation and some areas of competition. We have that with almost all of them at some point. And so we're working through it, and I think right now things are going reasonably well.
If you're going to keep the leadership on UCS, you had the solid safety in there. Okay. Everybody knew it. Yeah. And we had to move on.
And they didn't argue with that at all.
Who are some of the most exciting Internet of Everything technology partners that you're working with that the channel should consider building relationships with?
We each name one. I get to go first. I love Rockwell. It's a company we would not have had a relationship with, even a loose customer, and it's developed with their CEO, Keith, that we can finish each other's sentences. He understands how this changes manufacturing forever. We've already got our examples of one I used today with the manufacturing floor. If you have 5% downtime, it's a third-year profits that go out the door. So that would be a company that you would say, I wouldn't have thought of before. It's a company that we can go with Rockwell tightly, also with our other partners, to be effective on. Gentlemen, you're all best fit.
I've had an extremely exciting engagement with AGT, which is a company that does analytics and physical safety and security in emerging markets. And I think they have a great opportunity to unlock some of the capabilities of both the network, of our cloud, as well as analytics in very proactive, smart connected communities. So it's a new ecosystem partner. I think they're here as one, especially in emerging markets. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, they're here and they're taking part in the IOE panel discussion tomorrow lunchtime.
There you go.
Yeah, one that really gets this is moving quickly, but it's sort of a bit of a consumer play with them, is Bosch. We work very closely with them on their automotive capabilities. They're putting internet connectivity into all their appliances, all their products, etc. So there's an opportunity there. But then Schneider's the other one that I would call out that we've really seen a very progressive view from, and I think will be good for the partners to engage with.
Now, using all three of those examples, all four actually, once you have that relationship with a customer, you're the CEO and the line of business level. It's an entirely different relationship in terms of saying, we want to use you as our data center player as well. You have a whole different capability. I had the chance of speaking with Worldwide Technologies, Salesforce, just about 4 weeks ago. And in that session, we were talking about the Internet of Everything, and that's a company that literally is growing unbelievable over the last several years with our architecture and producing results. The best example they gave was a mining operation where you literally have, if one piece of equipment breaks down, it blocks the roads, it can block the mine, everything else, and they're hugely expensive. They receive, as I said today, 10,000 sensor feeds per second that go into 10 different databases, which is like flooding a central site. It's not in use. It's how do you really get the right information at the right time, the right device, to the right machine that causes that shop floor to stay up or the mine to stay up. So you're beginning to see our partners start to move pretty rapidly. So I would say, in terms of the partner who gets it, that might be one of the best who's really transforming themselves.
One question is, how do you see the future of commodity networking now? You have the big Chinese networking firm doing, mostly fighting on price and being more active in the enterprise.
Yeah, I think all three of us want to jump out of the seat and answer that question. But I'm going to let Scott. Scott just returned from China a month ago. That's the question.
I think the best way to answer that question is to remind us to look back at the slide that John put up today to show the competitors that we faced over the years. And we've always faced someone that was going to take us out, we weren't going to be successful against. And while they may have a bit of a unique go-to-market, I think we've seen this before. They're a very viable competitor, and we have, I think, gone from our teams really understanding how they approach customers to us leveraging our ecosystem candidly and this partner community that we've invested in for 15 years. And we have hundreds of thousands of people that get up every day and represent the solutions to the customers. So I think we'll win long term, but they're very good competitors.
We also have been very good about reminding our customers when they do business with Huawei